I began the work week in the usual fashion, late. I'd worked the night shift for years, but I was transferred last month, and now I'm on the day shift. I rubbed my eyes, sat up from bed, and peered through the blinds at the rising sun in the distance. Oh, I hate mornings. I showered, shaved, had a cup of coffee, but I skipped breakfast because of time. I was already running 15 minutes late. I had already been tardy twice for work since my shift change, and a third time, my boss would have me fired for sure. I grabbed my briefcase and headed for the car. Thank goodness it started this time. You see, I lived in my grandfather's old farmhouse on a gravel road in the middle of the woods, miles from the nearest neighbor, Mr. Kelly, let alone a main highway. Living in a desolate area does have its perks. That is, as long as you have provisions. I began to grow frustrated as I drove because of the fog in the woods. It was slowing me down. An overwhelming sense of dread began to come over me. Thoughts of past experience of trees that fell on the road or a flash flood delaying my travel to work made me shiver to the core. I couldn't afford to be late again. I have a presentation today, and my boss will have my neck for sure. I began to comfort myself with the flashbacks of my grandfather in these woods. As a boy, he used to joke with me about how the woods were magic and full of spirits that lived in the fog. At least, I hope he was joking. But my daydream was cut short by a dark shape that materialized in the mist. I slammed the brakes and quickly came to a stop. The fog made it very hard to tell through the windshield what exactly was blocking the road. Probably just a trash bag or something, I thought to myself. I thought about driving over the bag, but it would have something sharp in it and puncture my tires. I decided to play it safe, get out, and clear the road myself. I opened the car door, and the black mass began to move. It stood up. I immediately slammed the door of my car and locked it. I couldn't tell what it was, but whatever it was alive. Several moments passed like an eternity, and panic began to set in. It started to walk towards the car. I gripped the steering wheel in fear and anticipation about what was creeping towards me. Oh, just a silly baby deer. I rolled my eyes and sighed in relief. Get a hold of yourself, old chap. It's just a little fawn. I honked my horn a few times to scare it off the road, but it didn't move. I got out of the car and hurried towards it, waving my hands in the air, yelling, "Go on now, little one! Off the road now! Away with you! I'm late for work!" But the baby deer didn't move. It just stood there, staring. It seemed like a normal fawn with white spots, but something about it seemed off. The way it just stood there, bold and unafraid. I slowly started to move closer towards it. Its dark eyes seemed to stare right through me, to my inner soul. The guys at work would never believe me on this one, especially the boss. Then it hit me. I had a camera on my smartphone. I'll just snap a few pictures of the little guy as proof of my tardiness, and that will get me off the hook for sure. I snapped my first shot, and the shutter sound exploded from the phone. It seemed to echo through the woods, and even scared me. I looked down at the baby deer, and he didn't budge an inch. There was a little blood on his nose, and I felt inclined to wipe it clean if he would let me. I took a leap of bravery and reached towards the deer's head with my handkerchief. It snorted through its nose, smelling my scent. Its breath felt cold, ice cold against my hand. Suddenly, a loud shriek from a crow rained down from above and made me jerk. I looked back down at the baby deer. It was gone, back into the fog from which it came. I returned back to my seat and questioned if the whole incident had even happened. I looked at my cell phone as reassurance, and noticed something strange about the deer I had not seen before. In the photo, the baby deer only had 3 legs. Its front left leg was missing. It just wasn't there. Poor thing, I thought to myself. I hope it finds its mommy soon. I finished my adventure through the woods and was finally on the main highway. I breathed another sigh of relief as I saw the clock radio. I had just enough time to make it to work. I set the cruise control, and miles passed like seconds as I sped down the interstate. But soon, the whole ordeal began to fade from memory, as I began to concentrate on the flashing blue and red lights slowly appearing in the distant horizon. The pit in my stomach began to grow again, and I soon found myself in stopped traffic, just 1 mile from my job. Oh no, I thought to myself, I'll be late for sure now. I went to grab my cell phone to call my boss and tell him about the accident just outside of work. Shockingly, the phone was already ringing in my hands. It was my boss. He was calling to let me know about the pileup on the bridge and not to worry about being late. Oh, I breathed another sigh of relief. I still had my job. The crossing guard raised and pointed his hands, directing traffic off the bridge. As I passed by, there were several cars in the accident, and quite a few injuries as well. I began to thank the heavens above for that little fawn just 20 miles away, stopping me in the road. If it wasn't for him, I might have been involved in the accident, injured, or worse yet, killed. As I drove, a small crowd of police officers and firemen gathered around one car that was totaled very badly, and its back end was teetering off the edge of the bridge. And that's when I saw the cause of the accident. A tiny creature. Its image will haunt me for the rest of my life. Laying on the hood of the red car was a baby deer, and it had 3 legs.